Hi, I'm Jordan Kirkwood. I'm Head of Operations at King's College London, King's Academy, and today I'll be telling you my 5 top tips on modernising through automation. So tip number 1 is map out and identify your high resource, low impact tasks. COVID has really kind of reset everything in terms of what we do as operations. We've done lots of reactionary work before COVID. We did plenty of reactionary work during COVID. Now we're coming out of it and we're trying to be less reactive because of COVID, but going, what are we doing next? Then now we can start to focus on building something much more enhanced, much more automated. And that's where you want to identify what those processes are and going, we spend a lot of time doing lots of work here, but it's purely just, say, manual entry into a system or data management that could be automated. That's definitely something you need to do first. Otherwise, you won't know where to begin. An example of that is we took one program just to make it a bit easier for ourselves and started to map out what the stages were, where we could automate it, and then trialing it out. And then using the live trials of where we've gone, this works, and putting it into practice to then start to replicate that across other programs and services. Okay, number 2. So take it one step at a time. So you need to kind of build and establish a process ecosystem. So building on the first point, you need to figure out what it is you have, what your processes are, but take it steady. Start with one idea, go and figure out what you can do with it. You don't know what's possible in such as things like Microsoft Power Automate, which is what we used, until you've gone and had a play. And then within that, build and work, your processes into each other. If you're going to automate something, make sure that's actually going to create a benefit out on the output of what that process is. You're not creating new work that your team has to do because of this kind of complex process you've built. And that means you really start to go with automated, you take a piecemeal approach of one piece at a time, but eventually you can kind of string it together and watch it run itself. And it really takes the person out of the equation, and then they can focus on just making sure it works, managing it, monitoring it, but also then just spending some time on doing other work, more value-added work, enhancement work. Test, explore, and experiment as much as you can. You don't want to build a process, go, yeah, it works, or think it works, and then put it into your real working practice like you wouldn't with anything. You really need to commit to testing, exploring, and experimenting with what Power Automate and automations can do. Anybody, team or individual who has a go at doing this will find that they will hit way more obstacles than they envisaged, will feel like they don't know what they're doing and feel like they need support. So build a shadow kind of hypothetical process that mirrors what you currently have, what you need it to do, test it out with colleagues and yourself, and then start to feed it into the real practice. Do it in a test zone of this one registration period. We're going to check that works in live form, and then we start to build it out and roll out in other places. In terms of some kind of key questions on that, did I receive any IT support? No, there wasn't available at the time. And at the end of the day, you need to be able to do this as a team. Like, it's unsustainable to have IT do it for you or just yourself. It needs to be something you can put into practice. It's no single point of failure, and that everyone can manage. In terms of actually learning how to do Power Automate, there's a lot of resources online. There's a whole load of Google links you can use, frankly, but also there's plenty of video tutorials available on YouTube, and there might be some in-house trainings available at your institution on how to use it. So avoid single points of failure. Sustainability is key. So take your team on a journey with you rather than leave them behind. So something that's very typical is to run off and do this on your own and then come back and go, look at this, I've created this great new thing. That's what I did because it was a kind of forced necessity out of a lack of resource. Because you do need to go and figure out and learn how to do it. And then you can start to share that knowledge and build up kind of a community with your ops team or with your colleagues in whichever context you're in. But what you don't want is one oracle who knows how to do it all, puts this into practice, then leaves or becomes sick. So it needs to be sustainable. It needs to have more than one person who knows how to manage, monitor, and create these processes. And with that, bring your team with you. Sure, you might be the one going, I'm going to go and figure out how to do this, and share it with my team, then upskill them on it. But it is very much something that you have to do from the get-go to make sure you don't become a single point of failure, and that embedding sustainability is still the core aim. Make the time to explore with Power Automate or just any automated processes. You do need to create space to do it. You do need the time, but go and play with it first before you start to get serious and build your hopes up. It is really minor little things that you will automate, which actually will take hours out of your time, the whole point of automation is to get rid of reactive work and repetitive work. The more time you spend doing something that really anybody could do and doesn't add any value, however it's absolutely necessary, which many things are, the less time you will have to do this. So you do have to carve out the time to go, I'm going to spend 3 hours now and go and figure out how to automate. And then second to that is finding the courage to actually embed the stuff. It's no good building all of this process in hypothetical if you don't then enter it into actually what you do on a day-to-day. And that's where you really need to justify why you're doing it, show that it works, have robust testing, embed that sustainability, but also go, right, this is why it works to your senior management and to your wider colleagues. At the end of the day, like many things, it feels like you're cutting edge, but this should be something that everybody's doing now because we have less resource, less people, less time to do a lot more complex work than we have done, years and decades ago. So this allows us to automate many of those repetitive tasks that we previously would do on our own.